Intro. Okay. Hey, everybody. It's Doug. Literally, as the screen was counting down, Brett yells, "You're doing the intro." So here we are. I'm doing the intro. This is our 9th episode of the Sheepdog Brotherhood. The crazy thing is, I think the metric is like 10 episodes and like you actually have something. So the simple fact that we get together.
We're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost at something. So far, it's been musings and meanderings, and I don't know. I don't know where this is going, but I do know that based on the call to action from last week, I had a couple of people reach out to me and actually tell me of some of the hard things that they were looking to do and what they were going to do. So we've reached at least people, humans have responded and have begun watching and listening to what we're doing. So this is great. But anyway, here we are on our 9th episode, and I have with me, as always, the
He's hesitating.
I've got Brett. I got, you know what? There's nothing I can say. His name is
There's so many superlatives running through your mind. You couldn't pick one. Gosh,
I couldn't pick one that was crappy enough to just honor you in the only way that's fit, which is just.
I appreciate the love for sure.
Nearly 60. Here's Brett.
Oh, well, not till next year.
Close enough.
Yeah. True.
So Brett, I have to cough. You did something. Well, I wouldn't even say it's hard this week. You did something exciting, and you went and attended a men's conference in Dallas, if I'm not correct, or no, Oklahoma.
Yeah, come on, man, get the state
China?
right.
Where were you?
Idaho. No, I was up in Oklahoma.
Gotcha. So tell me about it, because
just south of Oklahoma City, in Norman, where the great Oklahoma Sooners are located. Just putting that plug in there. Boomer Sooner. It was the Oklahoma Catholic Men's Conference. Annually, I think they've been doing it for about 20-something years. And it's a very well-run event, just top class. And about 1,000 men gathered to attend this conference. A great lineup of speakers. Some of you will be familiar with Chris Stefanik. He's an international Catholic evangelist, just an incredible guy. Jeff Cavins, who, what was he known for? The Bible, not the Bible in the Year. That's
the Great Adventure Bible.
Thank you.
And so he's part of my Lenten challenge. Every day I listen to the Hallow. I do the Hallow app Lenten challenge, and then I listen to his daily reflection.
Okay,
Jim Caven's daily reflection, and it's great, man. It really centers my day and kind of challenges me to push myself. To kind of try and echo the Gospels. And yeah, it's great. I like Jeff Cavins. He seems like a really interesting dude to sit down and have a beer with.
Well, speaking of that, I did have dinner with him the night before the conference. So they had like I said, they do this conference so well. The night before, they have a speakers dinner where the team that puts together this whole conference, which is probably, I don't know, 20 to 50 volunteers, have a nice dinner for them, and the speakers are there, and they introduce us, and we get to meet the team. And so I got to sit with Jim and I'm sorry, Jim. I keep calling him Jim, Jeff, and talk with him. He is a really interesting dude from the great state of Minnesota. So we had some good talk about that. I, of course, said, why would anyone go live there? He's from there. Because it's freaking cold all the time. he convinced me that it's actually nothing like what people portray it to be, Minneapolis at least. He said when people talk about Minnesota cold, they talk about this one specific area that, like, during the winter, like, gets to minus 20 every day or something like that. It's like, of course, people don't want that. But he's from Minneapolis. Actually, he goes at
Minnesota in just the normal winter in just normal Minnesota, and the car didn't start. There was like 3 feet of snow. A polar bear ate my lunch on the way to the office. I don't believe it.
Other than that,
beautiful in the summertime, though. That'll give you.
Yeah, see, that's what people from Minnesota, they have just a different level of toughness when it comes to cold compared to the rest of us. So cold to me is like 45 degrees. For them, they're probably out there in swimsuits and 45 degrees. So it's all relative.
The
But anyway,
first time I went to Minnesota, I got pulled over by the police for driving down the wrong direction on a one-way road because I couldn't see any of the markings on the street to see that it was actually like there was so much snow you couldn't see anything. So I was driving down a one-way road, stone cold sober, right? Like there was middle of the day, I just couldn't see where I was going because of all of the snow. Terrible place.
you just gave me a great idea. The next time I do something dumb like that, Doug, I'm going to use some lame excuse like, yeah, I couldn't see the line. I'm so sorry. It's the rain. It's this place. It's the sunshine was too bright. Um, so anyway, who else was there? Oh, good friend of mine, Jim Beckman. Um, he was also a speaker. Awesome. My dear friend David B. Wright was speaking, and this time I was invited to actually speak at this thing, which was cool.
Wow.
So what happened is the organizer of the event was at a home event last year in Oklahoma where David spoke a little bit and then I spoke at this home event. And he was like, wow, this is really cool and unique. This kind of 1-2 punch that these guys have. It's very unique the way they talk about pro life. And so I'm going to slot them in. It's kind of like this special pro life section during the men's conference where David will speak for about 40 minutes doing the thing he does. And then I'll come in kind of batting cleanup, if you will, and do 20 minutes. So that's the first time we've done that 1-2 combination together and got a lot of great feedback about it. So it was pretty exciting. But anyway, it was a men's conference, right? So we were talking about men's issues. And, I think the recording of this will come out, I don't know, in a couple of weeks. But I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that really struck me when during the talks. And so I'll just start with Chris Stefanik. Is that okay with you, Doug?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So Chris is just an incredible speaker. I've seen him speak. I think this was the third time I've seen him speak. Super dynamic, very humble, and just honest. This is the first time I've seen him speak to men only. So when men speak to men only, we get a little more honest about men's issues, which was pretty funny. But his among many things, one of the things that stuck out to me, which would be no surprise, I don't think, to anyone listening to this, when him talking about just the loss of just masculinity in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you and I know about that. That's one of the reasons we started this podcast and this whole movement that we're trying to get going here. And he brought up a word which I thought was really cool, virility, virility. And it just that word just has with it that kind of like testosterone laden kind of let's get after it. And how in our culture, and I think we talked about this either last episode or the one before, Doug, it's like men are being like encouraged to be, if I could use this word, sissified. Like just be like, well, I think you said be more feminine, be
Yeah.
more like women. And what a tragedy that is. And, not only can we see the effects on this in our culture, just widespread, single families and single motherhood and all that stuff, lots of stuff. But it's just not what men want. We want to be like that knight in shining armor that, goes and does battle and saves things and makes a difference and changes the world and all those things. And I like how he captured that with that word, like virility. And so he talked about a little bit about, Jesus and how even our culture tries to, I hope doesn't anger anyone, but our culture tries to sissify Jesus even,
Sure.
right? Talk about the nice Jesus. And I remember back in the 70s, Doug, these movies where Jesus was like this, just forgive me, but like this weeping wimp, walking around like woe is me and all that. That's not it. That's not
Mm-hmm.
it at all, man. He wasn't nice. Could he be nice? Of course, he's God, but that was not his purpose, was to come and be nice to people. His purpose was to come and love people. And love a lot of times is not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we should know that. It's like when you correct your children, a
Yeah.
lot of times,
That's
you're not being nice to them, but
yeah.
you're loving them deeply. And
Yeah.
so, Chris, I'm trying to capture a lot in what he talked for like 55 minutes or an hour. But Chris was really trying to show we've got to take this back. And man, he gave a great example, Doug. And I was talking with you a little bit about this before we started, and I think I've heard this story before about how we can get so caught up in just doing what everyone else is doing, going along to get along. And this image that he gave just sticks in my mind because I think it shows like where we are. I don't know if we're quite this extreme, but we're heading this direction. And he talked about how Stalin, back in the days of the early Soviet Union, that name, of course, and he was encouraging this, had become within the Soviet Union kind of like this idol, godlike figure,
Mm-hmm.
Stalin. So there's this scene, I think it's called the Politburo, whatever it is. It's like their Congress, Politburo, something like that, where there's hundreds of men. And they had gotten into this habit of every time Stalin's name was mentioned, I thought they should stop mentioning his name. Every time his name was mentioned, like everyone would stand up and clap, right? And there's this scene where, because of fear of the men, of like, who's going to stop clapping first, right? Imagine this, hundreds of men stand there clapping. This goes on, I think Chris said, for 20 minutes. Can you imagine? I mean, not like this, but like really clapping for 20 minutes. Men started passing out. Can you imagine? Put that on your resume. I once clapped so hard I passed out.
But I like the next part of this. Tell the next part of this.
So sooner or later, somebody's going to have to be, somebody's going to have to step up and be the one who kind of like slowly, So, so there's this guy that does that. And of course, everybody's like, oh, okay. Thank God it wasn't me. That guy was missing the next day.
So sad.
Can you believe that? That is like, so Chris's point was, it's like, men, the more we continue to go down this path, going along to get along, as you pointed out, Doug, in one of our episodes, there's so much craziness. We know it's absolutely crazy. We could pull a list out right here, just a bunch of stupid stuff that's going on in our culture. We all know it's false, it's not true, it's complete baloney, it's goofiness.
Yeah.
How many men are standing up and saying, this is stupid, it's dumb, stop doing it, stop doing it, knowing that there could be a consequence to that, right?
Yep.
And there is, in our culture, it's what the cancel culture and all that stuff, or people just hating on you, but you know what? That's the loving thing to do, is to start telling people the truth. It's like, this is stupid. Stop it. Stop doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's dumb. You know it's dumb as well as I do. You're just one of the clapping men, like looking around, hoping someone else steps up and has the courage to stop clapping first and letting them be the fall guy for it, right? So I just love that message. It's like, let's stop this crap and start taking the culture back, man by man. So to hear that at this Catholic men's conference, 1,000 men there, it was really powerful.
I know in my life, I went to a what now has revealed itself to be incredibly liberal college, and at the time, I wasn't political at all in college, right? Like it wasn't on my radar at all.
Yeah.
And during the, I guess, 2016 election, leading up to that, you and I had already at this point become friends, and my involvement in the church, and like I was always against abortion, but I hadn't,
Mm.
it was a private thing, right? It was like, this is how
Mm.
I think about the world. So I'm just going to keep that to myself
Mm.
because, I work in society. I work with doctors. I work with all these people. And, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and say nothing because it's safer. And, it was bothering me what was going on. And I started speaking my mind about how I felt about it. And I realized that almost everyone I went to college with, uh, you know, they went with whatever the prevailing
Yeah.
narrative was, and that's what that was their argument. I literally all but like two of my friends from college. I mean, and these were teammates. These people walked away from me like I was. I mean, I can't even think of a good example.
Well, like leprosy or something.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great example. You
yeah.
know, and then not only to just say like, what, I think we're done with Doug. It was, I'm a racist. I'm a
Ooh,
bigot. I'm like they just would call me names like
wow.
people who I'd known for 20 years they were done. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the guys was my recruit in college. Like, so I was already in college. He was still in high school. So I had known this guy forever. And they walked away because they didn't like that, I wasn't part of the narrative, the liberal, moronical narrative. One of the guy's wives said that I was a nasty word. And she said
Wow.
that in the Constitution, it says that a human baby isn't a baby until it comes out. It's like,
That's the
what?
stupidest thing I've ever
Point to that line. Point to that
heard.
line for me, would you?
This tells me she did not go read the Constitution on her own. She just like swallowed some BS line that someone fed her.
Yeah. And also was a mother. So, you know, you mean to tell me that
What did we miss, Doug? Gosh, I got to go check out that Constitution again.
the child that had been kicking inside for 9 months, 8 months, however long, I don't know what point they start kicking, but I've never been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not alive in there at all, is what you're telling me. It's not alive until it comes out and breathes air. So the magical path down the birth canal, something magical happens and suddenly it's alive. I just couldn't. So the funny thing was, being stripped of all of those people was probably one of the best thing that's happened to me and my relationship with God, because I had surrounded myself with people that not people that I needed to be surrounded by.
Yeah.
The people that I was keeping in my life were no, granted, it hurt. It hurt losing all of those friends, but I am so much better off for not being, for being thrown out. I'm glad that I was thrown out. It wasn't that I was trying to get away from them, because I considered these people friends. And if they called me tomorrow and wanted to be friends again, of course. But being kind of tossed out, it's very much like what Jesus says, right? Like, you're going to be hated because of me.
Yeah.
And there is, when you were talking about David or Chris's talk, I found a strength and a, how after you're done working out, you're like, ooh, man, I feel stronger. Like, and you go look at yourself in the mirror, like, oh yeah, look at that. Like, I'm pumping iron.
I don't do that, Doug.
Okay, well, I do. But
And you're quite the man to admit it. Thank you.
But there's something that is invigorating, may not be the right word, but I felt like I was, okay, I got kicked in the nuggets. I had friends walk away from me because I said how I felt and said what I believed to be true and
Mm.
that I know aligns with God's message, but I felt stronger for it. I felt like I was wearing my faith,
Mm.
not just, you know, here's my faith, here's what I believe, and I'm gonna like stick it here so no one can see it, and it's just for me. No one's gonna know about it. I felt like I don't know. I felt better. I felt better, and I felt like I was actually living my faith out loud, and I was proud of that. Pride is bad, I guess, but in that sense, I know that I was on the right path and doing the right thing because people hated me for it.
You remind me of Jim Beckman's talk, which he finished up the day yesterday. And again, I'm gonna do a bad job of summarizing what was a great 1 hour talk. But you just reminded me of a visual that he gave during his talk, which was really powerful. And he said he actually had this as a dream, which I'm glad he qualified that, because if he would have been talking about this without saying that was a dream, I would have been, Jim, this is really weird. This is a really weird visual. So it goes something, I'm going to really try to shorten it here, but it goes something like this. He was at an amusement park. Around the amusement park, there was just high walls all around it. And he's walking around with people, being nice. It's an amusement park. Everybody's having fun, right? But he hears like off in the distance, like these bombs going off, or that's what he thinks it is. And he's asking other people, it's like, do y'all hear that? They're like, nah, that's just the machinery of the other rides. And so they get up and they go on this ride. I'm going to assume this is a Ferris wheel of some kind, because it goes up high where now you're up at the top, you can kind of look around, you can see. And Jim looks off in the distance because he can now see over the wall, and all around him is like war going on, like tanks and bombs and people shooting each other. And he's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And he's tapping on other people that are with him, like, you see that over, you see that? And they're like too caught up in something, they don't see it. And then he gets to the bottom, they get off the ride, and he's just like, oh my gosh, did you see what's going on outside the walls? It's unbelievable. No one saw it. And they're like, Jim, you're just settle down, dude. You're like, what's wrong with you? And so they're going up to this next ride, and suddenly, the people are like blowing him off. He's like running around trying to tell people, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to do something. And suddenly this like projectile or something comes in and hits this other ride that he was about to get on. He gets blown back, like you see in the movies. And like everybody that was going on that ride that was telling him, oh, nothing's wrong, they all die. And then, because this is a dream, it's kind of weird, right? Suddenly, like, everything grows up around this desolation that had happened because of this projectile coming in, and everything's like back to normal. But all these people had died. He survives, and he's still running around going, did you see what happened? You see what happened? Everybody's like saying, no, nothing's wrong, dude. His point is like, men, it's like this war, back when maybe we were a bit younger, it's not that it wasn't there, but it was farther off in the distance. And these warring like forces that are against us, if I could use your friends that you talked about a second, are closing in. Every year, those walls get closer and closer and closer, and they're getting very close to storming the gates. And it appears that most men are simply those people in the music park are running around doing their thing and going, "What's the problem? I don't hear any. I don't hear any war going on, right?" And his point was, it's going on, and this looks nothing like even 50, 100 years ago, really most of Western history, which was, even if people weren't Christians, it's still a Judeo-Christian culture until very recently. That's starting to change. A lot of this leftist kind of craziness um, absolutely rejects all of that entire Judeo-Christian background, philosophy, all of it. And they are on the attack. And it appears that most men are still walking around the amusement park, going around their daily lives, completely ignoring all of that, even as it gets closer and closer and closer, and just like getting on the next ride or buying their next bucket of popcorn or going and get their, their candy apple or whatever. And he's like, we better start taking this back,
Mm-hmm.
or sooner or later we won't be able to stop it.
The society is marching forward as if every day forward, every day in the future is a guarantee, and it's not, right. I
No.
mean, in that little dream, everyone is just assuming that everything is going to be perfect and fine for the foreseeable future. And as we know, we can't keep moving at this pace, doing what we're doing, and expect nothing bad to ever happen.
Yeah. And
Man.
then, David B. Wright, I believe I talked about this on a previous episode, but just to repeat it, because he used a different example, because now he's in the, he's doing the pro-life talk. And so in the pro-life talk, it's, they see, it's a bunch of guys on a boat on Lake Texoma. I think I talked about this before. Here comes the big wave. The woman clutching her baby falls over. What do all the men on the boat do? But I think it's the same, we drop on our knees and pray about it. Well, that's okay. Maybe if you prayed about it before and that forms who you are, but you have something that you need to take action. You need to do something to, in this case, save the woman and her baby. But back to the case about men just doing nothing but walking around the amusement park and having fun. When you see all this battle going on around you and it's starting to encroach on your life, you have to do something. And so David's example, I love. It's like he has like 5 or 6 different things. The 3 that I remember is, oh, what are we going to do? Drop and pray about it? Oh, are we going to form a committee and talk about it? Are we going to say, oh, that's not our state's problem, that's that other state's problem? It's like anything but me. It's like everybody else. You take care of it, right? And man, it's so powerful, because these are the kind of actions that we take sometimes when we're just not courageous enough to step up and say something, step up and do something, and just stop the madness.
So, what was your talk about?
Oh, thank you, Doug. My talk, this is going to be a shock to you. What do you think my theme was? Our favorite quote.
Marketing. Oh. Let's see.
Putting you on the spot, bro. Come on.
Let me
Nail
see
it.
if I can get this
You
right.
can do it.
Uh,
You probably have it written on the wall by now. Come on.
yeah, it's on the back of my hand. You just can't see it.
Yeah.
The duty of God has assigned the duty of every man, the preservation of the dignity of every woman.
That's pretty
Close?
close. That's really close. God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman.
No, okay. Not the
I'm going
preservation.
to score you as a B plus, but next week, let's make it an A. Come
Okay.
on, Doug. You can even cheat. You can have a cheat sheet. Put that up on your wall.
I'll still screw it up.
Yeah. God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. Now, I had 20 minutes, so obviously within the context of that through line theme, I talked
Hold
about
on.
pro-life work. Yes.
Hold on. The only thing I really want to know, though, is at the end of the talk, was there a standing ovation where people clapped until they passed out? Did that happen?
I guess you didn't watch the news last night. It was national news.
All right, continue. Sorry.
So, yeah. So that was the theme. Obviously, within the context of that theme, I was talking about the pro-life work of Heroic Media, and Doug, I did just briefly mention the Sheepdog Brotherhood. You'll be happy to know. Oh yeah,
Hey.
I talked about you, but I didn't get Doug's permission to use his name, so I just said a buddy of mine, which is true. And but anyway, So I'll talk about one of the things that I talked about, which is really powerful, and I went through this with the men is, definitions are everything. And I won't be able to recall the exact words off the top of my head here because I don't have them in front of me, but it's very interesting to define some of the key words in that 14 word quote. And I told him, I was like, these 14 words are so powerful. I've been, ever since I ran across that quote, Doug, which was sometime last summer after you and I kind of started talking about the idea of the Sheepdog Brotherhood,
Mhm.
which we hadn't named it at the time, but I've been praying about that quote every day since, thinking about it, researching it more. And as part of going deeper into that, I want to like look at definitions of the words within that quote. Not the words that aren't that important, like but like God, assigned, duty, dignity, and then even every, because I think we all know the definition, I hope, of every, but it's interesting to say every man, every woman. But anyway, so with this group yesterday, group of Catholic men, I didn't have to go too deeply into defining God. That was easy. But it is the Alpha, the Omega, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the big man, the boss. Assigned is to give a definite piece of work expected of someone. God has assigned as a duty. Duty is a really interesting word when you look it up in the dictionary. It means something expected of someone as a moral or legal obligation.
Mm.
I love that because when we hear that word obligation, we go, oh, not optional, mandatory. Wow. So God has assigned a mandatory duty. God has assigned as a duty to every. Now, why did I spend a little bit of time on every? This is back to our example a while ago. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that hard work, Doug. Can you do it?
Mm-hmm. It's not to be delegated.
At all. Every man. So don't look around. Hey, you going to do that? It's like, it's you. Every man. So this is kind of funny. I got a bit of a laugh out of the audience here. But I was like, you know, if I was speaking to some groups, I think I would have to spend some time defining man in today's culture,
Yeah.
unfortunately. With this particular group here, a group of 1,000, very faithful Catholic men, don't have to spend much time doing that, but just in case, that's y'all. That's
Yeah.
me.
You didn't also have to define woman as well, which I think in
Yes.
society is now impossible.
Hey, the way I defined it yesterday during my talk is that's not y'all, that's not me. Yes.
Look to your left, look to your right, not you guys. That's not a woman.
Look around in here, no women. So God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity. So dignity, I love the definition that I found for this word, the nobility or elevation of character. You
Mm.
know, character being defined as the virtues. So when your duty is the nobility or elevation of character of someone, man, is that's just an inspiring, exciting duty to have. And in this particular quote, the dignity of whom? Every woman. So women, but all of them. And I didn't have time to get in this yesterday. If I had maybe 10 more minutes, I would have gotten a little more into this. But in my pro-life work, what you see a lot of times is women who face unexpected pregnancies. A lot of times, man, they come from inner city, very difficult backgrounds, and so when you come into contact with them at a pregnancy help center, for example, well, they don't talk like you talk, they don't look like you look, they don't believe like you believe, and it can be a bit jarring, right? They don't travel in the same circles that you travel in. And a lot of times these are women who have just been raised in very difficult situations. They are not necessarily nice people. Um, and so your immediate psychological reaction, your immediate emotional reaction, that sometimes can be one of, oh man, I don't want to be around this.
Mm-hmm.
And God is basically saying, no, every woman, not with conditions like, oh, they have to fulfill these kinds of things. They have to check these boxes. And then you're responsible for dignifying those women. It's every woman. And that takes an extreme dose of humility to be able to do that, because when those women walk in who would give you a natural negative emotional reaction because of just the way they carry themselves, you have to put on the heart and mind of Jesus and just see Jesus in that woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to pour out yourself for her in terms of your efforts to dignify her, just as much as you would for someone who would walk in who maybe is more from your natural circle of influence, or not a circle of influence, but your natural circle that you travel in. And the way she carries herself, talks, looks, maybe is a bit more amenable to what you would find normal. Doesn't matter. God is saying every woman. So it was interesting to talk about that. And so I was getting some feedback from some guys later who were coming up, and they were talking about the context of the whole, I'll call it the David B. Wright, Brett Atterbury, like 1-2 punch. Because they were like, they were saying, we never heard pro-life talked about in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I love about what David points out, and I'm so glad that he does, is, yesterday, for example, we're in Oklahoma. Abortion is illegal in Oklahoma. But as he points out, and I point out in a lot of things that I write, that's fine and good and all that. But don't for 1 second think that women in Oklahoma aren't getting abortions. They are. They're either traveling across the border, or more and more abortion pills that they can order online and get from other groups in other states are flowing into the state, right to the homes of those young women. And right there in their own homes, they essentially become the abortionist. It's like a self-abortion. There's even a word for it sometimes used, a DIY abortion, do it yourself abortion. This is our new world, right? And so this is why I write, as you know, I write quite a bit about, naturally, we want to pursue laws that are highly moral, of course. And since abortion is abhorrent, obviously we want laws that say that abortion is illegal. That being said, from a front lines perspective, from a pragmatic perspective, those laws can do very little to actually stop abortion. This is where people make the mistake, and this has been done in the pro-life community for half a century, of kind of tying slavery and abortion together. They're right from the perspective of dehumanizing human beings. That's absolutely 100% correct.
Sure.
But from the perspective of being able to police this and stop it through laws, they have completely separated now. Because with slavery, that was easier to do because you could go see the slavery where it was happening and stop it. Abortion now, more than half of abortions in this country are by the abortion pill. You can't stop it. You can't. It's like this secret. First of all, it's really small, hard to identify, and can be mailed to a person's house or brought in all kinds of different ways. The chemistry of these two pills is known. So there's a big Supreme Court case coming up about possibly something happening where the first part of the abortion pill regimen, mifepristone, will somehow be outlawed because the FDA screwed up. I'm simplifying it. My point would be, okay, not that I'm against that. I'm for that. Anything that's an obstacle that hurts our competition, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone believes that that will stop the abortion pill, you're deluding yourself. The
True.
chemistry is known. It's known by overseas suppliers, India, Latin American countries, Eastern European countries could care less about the laws in the United States. They don't care at all. So let's just say the FDA somehow it becomes illegal in the United States, this particular drug. It won't matter. It might slow some things down in the short term, but the demand is still high. Already, you can get those pills online from overseas suppliers. All you're going to do, which is very similar, it's why I like to talk about the abortion pill is part of the war on drugs. All you're going to do is incentivize a bunch of terrible people, gangs, drug gangs, to up the production of these kinds of pills, which then means the quality and the safety of it probably go down. And they're just going to continue to flow over the borders because the demand is there. There's a lot of money to be made from it.
And
This is the world we're in.
and here's the crazy part. The next step of that I see is if that were to happen, who now will be held responsible? They'll say that it's the pro-life people who have caused all of these, women who were only seeking to abort their children. They're going to say, well, look, it's the pro-life community who got that drug, outlawed, regardless of the fact that whatever the FDA did, whatever the ruling of the Supreme Court is, they'll say it's the pro-life people whose fault are all of these women now being killed because they're taking illegal versions of a drug that's been outlawed, and somehow it's our fault.
So Doug, you and I are strategy guys. And if I could, having now worked, I've basically been working full time in pro life for a decade. And one of my critiques of the pro life community is a lack of thinking about what I would call like order of effects. So you just pointed out something that is what I would call maybe a second order of effect of if we do this, if we make this action, like what are the various paths of things that could happen, right? Different layers. And you could start going down to multiple layers. And I think in my kind of looking back at the pro-life community, Roe v. Wade being a perfect example, rarely does the pro-life community think through even that next layer of the possibility of things could happen. Rarely do they think like you just thought. Do they go to that exact point that you just made? And it's a huge weakness in the pro-life community. There's such a desire just to, because abortion is so horrific. There's such a desire just to get something done, right? And so right now, the big push will be to try to get preborn human beings defined as persons under the 14th Amendment. And let me say right here, I'm all for it. But is the pro-life community thinking through, as you just did, that's just kind of how you and I are wired from our business background. Are they thinking through, like, well, if you do that, how is the other side going to respond to that? Do you think they're just going to do nothing?
Well, I guess it's illegal now.
Yeah. Gosh, we gave it a good go there for a century. Let's just pack up our bags and go home. They got us, right? Yeah, no. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee you that within the boardrooms of the various large organizations that make up the abortion industrial complex, they already have on their boards, on their whiteboards, on their PowerPoint presentations and all that, they're already discussing, like, should that happen, here's how we respond. Not only that, I can guarantee you they've already put into action things that are already getting built in case that eventuality comes to pass.
Okay. I just got a notice that it was having trouble connecting to the server, but keep going. I think it's resolved itself now.
So this is exactly what happened when you think about the absolute buildup for half a century of let's overturn Roe versus Wade, and the excitement around that, and so much time, talent, treasure poured into that effort for decades, and basically the abortion pill just circumvented all of that. And do you think that the abortion industrial complex was not thinking about all those things back when they were saying, like, do you think they didn't have a plan in place? Should Roe v. Wade be overturned? Here's what we do.
Yeah. They
Of
have
course they did.
contingencies. They've got contingencies.
Of course they do. Right? Do you think they don't have a contingency for should the preborn end up being included as persons under the 14th Amendment legally, which would basically mean abortion is illegal across the land. So it even takes it out of the state's hands. It's like it's illegal. Do you think that the abortion industrial complex is not aware of this? Do you think they have not been aware of the eventuality, the possibility of that, and that they aren't already, that they didn't create contingency plans and that they aren't already working on them? Yes, they are. Behind the scenes, 100% guaranteed.
And you know what? The other thing that the other side of, I'll say the enemy, but the abortion industrial complex, as you correctly called it, they do a great job of something that I think you and I think about when we speak, when we give talks, when we have these conversations. They do something where they think about how a word will be defined. They think of other ways to define that same word, and their verbiage is so precise. I mean, like, it's evil, but you got to give them credit for the way that they take a word and redefine it to mean something else. And I think it's a great full circle, right? That in your talk yesterday, you were talking about the definitions of words and how important and how significant a definition can be and is. And if you happen to listen to a particular speech that happened earlier this week, the way the current president uses words and language to not say a thing, but says something completely different using an innocuous term like healthcare. It went from a right to choose. I love the fact that the abortion industry uses like who doesn't want choice? Choice is great. You go to the grocery store, you go 65 different types of chocolate cereal alone, let alone the healthy cereals, and look at all of the options we have. Choice is a good thing. Choice helps. Choice is capitalistic. It means that the good things can be chosen and the bad things can be avoided. But you and I know when he says healthcare and when he says choice, you know exactly what euphemistic terms he's referring to. Killing the choice to kill your child, and healthcare, somehow cutting a baby into multiple parts inside the womb and sucking it out, somehow is healthcare.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. Like we need to get our crap together and figure out how to take, and this is something that you and I have talked about, and you specifically for 10 years, using that marketing background, have done such a good job of being very methodical about the words you use to define what's being done. And I think, again, coming full circle, the beginning of how you were talking about Chris Stefanik's talk, Jesus wasn't, my buddy Jesus, this just hippie that loved everybody and spoke in nice terms and didn't want to upset anyone. We need to be specific about what happens and not fear that we may turn people off if we say what's actually happening, because look, you're far more front lines than I have ever been, and I'm sure there are kid gloves that need to be used at times when how you're talking to a woman who's seeking abortion. I get that, but you know, I don't know, that thoughts into my head, out of my mouth. There's no filter for me. I just stuff in and out.
Well, Doug, let me maybe I can land the plane here on this one because it is an absolutely crucial issue, the use of language. And I would say, to emphasize your point, the opposition, our foe in this case, is so much more thoughtful and skilled at this than our side has traditionally been. It's very interesting. Our side, as you laid out a second ago, as you described the horrific uh, reality of what an abortion is, we just want to use factual scientific truth words, right? The other side, I think, knows, and you'll know this because you have a marketing and sales background. People buy on emotions, right? Even the most logical dude who will tell you they did all their due diligence and blah blah blah, we know from research, even those dudes, the fact is they buy on emotion and then they justify it with logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all sales guys know that. Well, I would say in this particular issue, the other side knows this so much better than we do. And the word that they're using now, which I found, again, what a shocker, it's really powerful. Reproductive freedom. That word here in this country especially has such a powerful emotional punch. It just packs a punch, man. And so when you establish reproductive freedom, and as you pointed out, what that really means is abortion. But what lands in people's minds is reproductive freedom. Now you set up where that's your thing that your team is pushing, and you're defining your product and service under those words. And therefore your opposition is what? Taking away your freedom.
Mm-hmm. They pitch it as a good. They pitch it as a net positive moral thing.
And dude, I keep kind of emphasizing this to my fellow pro-life leaders. That is from a marketing and sales perspective, that is very powerful. And we are already in, as we always have been, we're in the behind position again, because man, that's a hard one to counter. In other words, our approach tends to be go talk about facts about what abortion is, it's a life and all that. It won't work. That I'm telling you, in people's minds, that kind of thing has much less emotional punch than someone taking away your freedom. And our side just doesn't like to hear that, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I do think, since this is kind of where my mind is all the time, and I have to work on these things, is freedom, are you truly free if, what happened?
I don't know.
Oh, my thing went away for a second. Yeah. Did
Okay.
you see that?
So are you truly free?
Are you truly free? Sorry, we had a technical hiccup. Are you truly free if in any particular thing you have not been given all of the truthful information about something? So if you're in a particular situation and you need information in order to make a decision about you're going to go this way or that way, and this company that's coming forward saying they're all about freedom, yet they withhold information from you, which would be very important to you and information that you want in order to make the best choice for you, they have intentionally withheld it, not out of ignorance because they know this information, but they're withholding that information because they want to steer you a certain direction. Mm-hmm. Is that freedom? To me, that sounds like coercion. It certainly sounds like deception. It certainly sounds like they're more concerned about their interest than your interest. So that doesn't sound like freedom to me. And the reason I bring this up is, and I talked about this in my talk yesterday, and I've mentioned it here before, is just a remarkable research report published in May last year, asking women who had had abortions what their satisfaction was with their decision. 6 out of 10, Doug, say they would have preferred to choose life if only they had received two things: more emotional support and more financial support. That's it. And is the abortion industrial complex, with these, let's just talk about the 6 out of 10. Are those 6 out of 10 women being presented all the facts, the medical facts about abortion, the medical facts about carrying a pregnancy to term, and the facts about emotional and financial support available to them should they choose to carry their pregnancy to term? Is Planned Parenthood giving that information when women come in? Hell no. Not even close. Why? Because they know, like we know, that if they do that, and believe me, they have the resources to do it, if they did that, 6 out of 10 women will choose the thing where Planned Parenthood can't make money off of abortion. Wow, how would you like to do that in your business, Doug? All of a sudden, you're on purpose going to say things where 6 out of 10 of your customers are going to walk away and choose your competitor's product.
By being truthful, no less.
Yeah. So this side over here, which continues to talk about freedom, 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 withholds information willfully from women in order that those women will choose the thing that they offer so that they can make money off of those women. How on earth is that freedom? That sounds to me like, oh, here's that word, slavery. That sounds to me like binding people into something that they didn't want to do. When you had all the information and the resources where you could have unbound them and let them choose the thing that they wanted to choose anyway. In my mind, this is the attack angle that the pro-life community should have. It's more powerful. It's more emotionally powerful to go on the counteroffensive and say, oh, okay, yeah, freedom. We believe in freedom. Let's talk about freedom. Isn't freedom giving you all the information you need to make the right decision for yourself? Is it freedom if someone that you're talking to who knows and has at their disposal the information you need to make the best decision for yourself, is it freedom if they withhold that from you? Because that's exactly what this side does, and we can prove it. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the much better, more powerful counteroffensive than trying to build a scientific case that life begins in the womb. Doug, now I'm going off on a tangent here. Women know that. Women aren't choosing abortion because, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. They know it's a baby.
Yeah.
It's like this thing about clump of cells and all that is such garbage. Maybe it was like that back in the 70s. Women know it's a baby. Mm-hmm. It's just that in this situation that they're in, they're simply weighing options and going, okay, I know that, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all my income. You know, many of these women are single. Some of them already have children. It's like, I can't take care of this baby. I'm completely at wit's end and I don't have any other choice. And it's just amazing that the other side, this abortion industrial complex, has both the information and the resources to help that woman do what she really wants to do. 6 out of 10 really want to choose life, and they withhold all of that information and resources from
them. They've got a better marketing game.
Yeah. Oh, by far.
Yeah.
So Heroic Media and what I do and what we're going to do here, I know it's not our only thing that we talk about, but when you talk about dignifying women, that's part of it. Is like you have this huge industrial complex worth billions of dollars, which is just completely based on blood money. Completely, what's the opposite of dignify, Doug?
Desecrate.
Yeah, we'll go with that for now. Desecrates women. I mean, God uses them as objects for money. I mean, could there be anything more humiliating to a woman than to be used as simply as an object for profit because she's pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
And we, back to circling back to Chris Stefanik, part of masculinity in my mind for Christian men is to say, no more of this crap. That's ridiculous. We cannot let this behemoth of an evil industrial complex continue to do this to women. We can't do it. We got to stop this. It's crazy. It's wrong. It's evil. It's crazy. And we have to stop this.
Amen. And on that note, I say we call it right there.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Hey, brother, have a great week. Thank you so much for your time again. This was a great talk, man. I really enjoyed this conversation today, letting people know men are called. We're called to stand up, to stop going along to get along. And if you are a good Christian man and you want to do what's right, it requires doing something that's hard. And this isn't easy. It isn't easy to stand up and say where you stand on a particular topic. But if you're being honest and truthful with yourself, you know what right is, and you have to stand up and take a position and stand with right. That's
Amen,
it.
brother.
Have a good day. Take care, Brett.
You too.